What's going on, guys? Happy April. And April is not just the date that I am coming to talk to you, but is the subject of our show. It's the first breakdown bite of the month, and it comes after what was undeniably a great Q1 2023. I think that if you had looked in December and you had surveyed a set of people about what the likely role or what the likely price appreciation or decrease would be for Bitcoin and for crypto in general in Q1, a lot of people would have been pretty bearish in December, right? We were coming off of FTX, we were dealing with bank runs on Silvergate, and in general, there was a lot of expectation that the authorities were going to crack down, which is certainly something we've seen, and that prices might be depressed because of that regulatory response. Layer on top of that, what we ended up having with a banking crisis, and it's pretty impressive how Bitcoin has performed. It was up about 70% last quarter, its best quarter in about 2 years. Now, today we're going to both look forward and look backward at the same time. And I will caveat this whole show saying that I think it's a little risky to infer too much from past seasonality of performance, but I still think it's interesting, right? So if you look at, as you can see on this chart that I'm showing you now, the last 10 years for both stocks and for crypto, there is a clear trend. The S&P 500 was up an average of 2.6 in Aprils over the last 10 years. 8 out of the 10 were in the green. Now, in crypto, in Bitcoin, 6 out of the 10 were in the green, but Bitcoin was up on average across all of those 10 years, 17% each April. It was the best performing month in the first half of the year and the third best historical month performance overall. So what might be going on? Well, Matrixport, who was the firm that had these stats which inspired the show, thinks that a big reason that we might see something similar this year is the decline of inflation. That's something we're going to get into in a minute. But interestingly, one of the theses that people have who have studied this sort of seasonality before is that it has to do something with the tax season. So what specifically would that be? Well, when tax season is coming up, the assumption is that some number of people, some number of crypto investors have to sell their crypto. They have to sell their Bitcoin in order to cover their tax bill. There is a annual forced selling event, in other words. However, once that selling is done, the markets are free to return to whatever trajectory they would have had if it weren't for that forced selling, right? So basically, April 15th every year, the first half of April involves some amount of forced selling, but then there is a rebound or a rally on the other side. This is one just sort of general thesis about why April might perform better than average. And I think that applies to both stocks and as well to other risk assets, including crypto and Bitcoin. Now, when it comes to this year and reasons that we might be in store for another good April, there are a few different things that people are pointing to. One is that we're starting to see the moderation of inflation in a way that could suggest that we've turned a corner, right, on inflation. So you see this article from just a few days ago from Bloomberg. Fed favored inflation gauge rises by less than forecast and spending moderates. Basically, the core PCE index climbed 0.3% last month and January was revised down. Service inflation minus energy slowed in February. These are really encouraging signs for those who are watching because the Fed is looking for justification in some ways to either, if not switch course entirely, at least to slow down the rate of acceleration or the rate of rate hikes, to potentially have the political cloud cover to pause in the face of liquidity issues and an emerging credit crisis. Basically, the Fed is right now really stuck between a rock and a hard place with banking crises and liquidity on the one hand, but persistent inflation on the other. To the extent that inflation really does start to moderate, I don't think that you should expect to see the Fed flip gears and start cutting rates all of a sudden, although markets are pricing in some rate cuts at the end of this year, but it does give them enough space to at least pause, right? We might not get to the pivot, but we might get to the pause. So that's one reason that April could continue what is already a good trend. Another reason that's more crypto specific might have to do with the opening of Asia, parts of Asia that have been more closed to crypto once again. So this is something we've talked about a lot in the context of US banking policy and Operation Choke Point 2.0. But even as firms are being forced out of the US, we're seeing a return to openness in Hong Kong in particular that many people are excited about. So this is the latest in a string of articles about how Hong Kong is opening up. And this one is maybe the most notable because the first couple were about Chinese officials showing up at crypto meetups and having positive interactions with the community there. Well, this one is about Chinese state-owned banks actually recruiting crypto companies to provide banking services for them in Hong Kong. All of these articles make the connection between the closing of the US and the US banking sector to crypto and the new openness of the Chinese vis-a-vis Hong Kong. Now, how much this is actually going to bear fruit and what exact rules go into place in Hong Kong, it remains to be seen. I think it's dangerous to assume too much in a very dynamic part of the world, but it is getting lots of people excited that there could be basically an easier pathway for big markets to get back into the crypto space. You're seeing it not just in Hong Kong, but you also have a potential new digital asset law in South Korea. And so all in all, there's a lot of that sort of excitement going on. Now, I asked on Twitter what people thought. And obviously you should take this with a grain of salt because whenever you do a Twitter poll, you might as well be saying, what do you hope happens as much as what you think will happen? But of the Twitter poll, 61% say we're going up, 22% say we're staying flat, and 16% say we're going down. Now, I did have some people ask me why there wasn't an I don't know opinion, and certainly I would be in the I don't know camp, so I probably should have included that. However, there's something interesting in this signal here that shows, if nothing else, optimism in the space. I don't think that if you had taken this poll again in December, it would have necessarily hit this number of people thinking we're going up. Now, of course, that probably means that we're going down and going in the opposite direction, but still interesting food for thought. Anyways, guys, this is definitely the sugar snack of this content, just a fun little look at what might happen in April from a historical basis. Stick around later today. I'm doing a show about much bigger and more important issues, specifically OPEC's recent surprise cut in production and what that means, as well as liquid natural gas being priced in the Chinese yuan for the first time. That's coming up tonight. But for now, happy April. Looking forward to hanging out with you guys here. Peace.